I was 12 the first time I realized my parents only had one child they truly loved, and it wasn't me. My name is Elena. I grew up in a beautiful house on Maplewood Lane, the kind of place people slow down to admire when they drive by. They'd whisper to each other, "They must be so happy in there." White picket fence freshly painted every spring, rose bushes blooming along the walkway. A wide front porch with a wooden swing that creaked gently in the breeze. Sunday brunches where the table was always set with linen napkins and fresh orange juice. Family portraits hanging in the hallway where everyone was smiling just right, teeth showing, eyes crinkled, arms around each other like we were the model family in a catalog. But smiles can lie. I learned that lesson earlier than most children should. I was the quiet one, the invisible one almost. The girl who got straight A's without anyone having to ask, who helped my mom in the kitchen without being thanked, who stayed home on weekends studying while my older brother, Marcus, was out building his future, or at least that's what everyone called it. Marcus was 3 years older, tall even as a teenager with our father's confident smile and our mother's easy, infectious laugh. He had this effortless charm that made teachers forgive his late assignments and neighbors offer him extra cookies. He was their golden boy, their miracle, their everything. I still remember the exact day of my middle school graduation like it was etched into my bones. The gymnasium smelled of floor polish and cheap floral perfume. I had the highest GPA in my entire class, not just my grade, the whole middle school. When they called my name, Elena Marie Thompson, the applause was polite. I walked across the stage in my too big black gown, clutching that certificate like it was proof that I existed. Mom hugged me quickly, a brief squeeze, the kind you give someone you're proud of but don't want to make a fuss over. Then she turned immediately to Marcus, who had just gotten suspended for skipping school 3 times that month. He was leaning against the bleachers, hands in his pockets, looking bored but somehow still magnetic. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," Mom said to him, ruffling his messy hair with genuine affection. "You'll figure it out." "You always do." Dad slipped him a $20 bill right there in front of everyone. "For gas," he said with a wink. "Don't spend it all in one place." I stood there holding my certificate, the paper suddenly feeling thin and meaningless. The edges were starting to curl from how tightly I was gripping it. No one offered me money. No one ruffled my hair or told me I'd figure anything out. I smiled anyway, the same practiced smile from all those family portraits, and told myself it was okay. That's what families do, right? They support the one who needs it more, but deep down, something in me started to crack that day. A tiny fracture, almost invisible like the first hairline split in a windshield. You don't notice it at first, but every bump in the road makes it spread a little wider. Warm, slightly faded flashback montage begins. Soft golden lighting. I see myself at 10 years old, standing on a step stool in the kitchen, carefully measuring flour for chocolate chip cookies. The mixing bowl was too big for my hands, but I wanted to surprise Mom. I baked them all by myself, burned the first batch, but the second came out perfect, gooey in the middle, just how Dad liked them. When I presented the plate, still warm, Mom smiled distractedly and said, "That's nice, honey," before calling Marcus down from his room. He grabbed 3 cookies without even looking at me and ran back upstairs. The plate sat on the counter for the rest of the evening. Only 3 cookies were missing. The rest went stale. Then the scene shifts. Marcus at 13, getting a brand new red mountain bike for trying hard in school, even though his report card had mostly C's and 1 D in math. He rode it up and down the driveway, whooping with joy while Dad filmed him on the old camcorder. I stood on the porch in my faded hand-me-down sneakers, watching. When I asked quietly if I could try it, Marcus laughed and said, "You'd probably fall and break it, Ellie." Mom just chuckled and told me to go help set the table instead. I got hand-me-downs, always. Clothes from cousins I barely knew, books with torn covers, a bicycle that was already scratched and rusty when it became mine. I never complained out loud. Complaining made me feel selfish. Marcus needed things. Marcus was figuring himself out. I was just reliable. The montage fades back to my face in the present. The rain sound continues softly. Years passed, but the pattern only grew clearer, like ink bleeding through paper. I worked 2 jobs through college, waitressing at a 24-hour diner on weekends and tutoring high school kids in the evenings. I paid my own tuition every single semester, scraping together scholarships and whatever tips I could earn. I graduated with honors in business and marketing, summa cum laude, standing at the top of my class while my parents sat in the audience. They clapped, of course. They even took a few photos. But later that night at the celebratory dinner, the conversation quickly turned to Marcus. He had dropped out of college twice by then. First from community college after one semester of partying. Then from a state university after he needed a break to find himself. He'd been traveling, backpacking through Europe on money I still don't know the full source of, and came home broke again. With stories of wild nights and life-changing experiences. Every time he stumbled, my parents would look at me with those tired, expectant eyes. "Elena, can you help your brother? Family comes first." And I did, I always did, because I loved them. Because I still believed, with that stubborn, aching hope only the overlooked child can cling to, that if I was good enough, patient enough, generous enough, they would finally see me. Really see me? Not as the reliable daughter who never caused trouble, but as someone worthy of the same warmth they poured so freely over Marcus. I lent him money for business ideas that never materialized. I covered his rent when he got evicted. I even let him crash on my couch for 3 months while he got back on his feet. Each time, Mom would hug me tighter than usual and say, "You're such a good sister, Elena." "Marcus is lucky to have you," Dad would nod approvingly. "That's my girl," and for a while that was enough, almost. Camera slowly pans across old family videos playing on a laptop screen in the background. Grainy footage of laughter echoing, birthday parties, vacations, holidays. Marcus always at the center. Me in the background, smiling but slightly out of focus. Then came the day everything started to shift in a way I couldn't ignore. Marcus had this incredible way of making every bad decision sound like the beginning of a grand adventure. His eyes would light up, his voice would drop into that charismatic storyteller tone, and suddenly borrowing thousands of dollars felt like investing in the future, his future, of course. "Sis, I've got this huge opportunity. Just need a little seed money. I'll pay you back double, I swear." This time it's real. I was 24 then, freshly graduated, working my first real marketing job and still living in a tiny studio apartment because I was saving every penny for something better. I had been putting aside money for months, a down payment on my own place, maybe even a small car that didn't break down every other week. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. Earned through late nights and skipped meals, I gave it to him anyway. The look on Mom and Dad's faces when they heard it was pure pride, not for me, for him. "See," Mom said, squeezing Marcus's shoulder. "That's what siblings do, they lift each other up." They never asked why I was eating instant noodles for the next 3 months. They never noticed when I started taking the bus instead of driving because gas was too expensive. They never saw how I worked overtime just to rebuild what I had given away. But what I didn't know that day, what none of us knew, would change everything I thought I knew about him, about all of them. Pause, the piano slows. Rain grows slightly heavier. It started with small things. Whispers I overheard when I came home for Sunday dinner. Phone calls that ended abruptly when I walked into the room. Marcus disappearing for days with a secretive smile, coming back with new clothes, new stories, but the same empty pockets when it came time to repay me. I told myself I was being paranoid. That I was letting old childhood wounds color my vision. After all, family is messy, love isn't always fair. I had read all the self-help books, watched the TED Talks, repeated the affirmations in the mirror. I am enough. My worth isn't measured by their attention. But the cracks were spreading. One evening, about 6 months after I gave him my savings, I stopped by my parents' house unannounced. The white picket fence still looked perfect. The roses were in full bloom. I let myself in with the spare key I'd had since I was 16. The house smelled like Mom's famous lasagna, the one she only made when Marcus was coming over. Laughter drifted from the living room. Deep, warm, familiar laughter. I walked in quietly and saw them, Mom, Dad, and Marcus sitting around the coffee table with takeout boxes, not lasagna after all, Chinese, his favorite. They were looking at something on Marcus's laptop. Their faces glowed with excitement. "You're really doing it this time, son," Dad was saying, clapping Marcus on the back. "This could be huge." Mom's eyes were shining. "We're so proud of you, baby, taking initiative like this." I stood in the doorway, still holding the bottle of wine I'd brought as a surprise. No one had noticed me yet. Marcus glanced up, and for a split second, something flickered across his face, not guilt exactly, but calculation. Then the charm kicked in. "Ellie, you're here." Perfect timing. He stood up, pulling me into a hug that felt too tight. "Come see this. I was just telling Mom and Dad about the new venture." I forced a smile. "The one I helped fund?" There was a tiny pause. Mom laughed lightly. "Oh, Elena, always so practical. Come sit down. Tell us about your week at work." They shifted the conversation so smoothly I almost missed it. Almost. Later that night, after Marcus had left and my parents were cleaning up, I helped Mom load the dishwasher like I always did. "Mom," I said quietly, "has Marcus paid back any of the money yet?" She sighed, the way she did when she thought I was being difficult. "Sweetheart, not everything is about money. He's trying. You know how hard it is for him? He's not like you, he doesn't have your discipline." The words landed like a stone in my stomach. "Not like you." I had heard variations of that phrase my entire life. "You're so responsible, Elena. Marcus is more creative. You don't need as much help. He needs us more right now." I nodded, dried my hands on the towel, and changed the subject. But inside, the fracture was widening into something deeper, something that felt dangerously close to anger. Flashback deepens. Slower, more intimate. I remember being 14. Sitting on the edge of my bed after another night where Marcus got the new video game console for doing better in school, while I got a pat on the head for making honor roll again. I had cried quietly into my pillow, then wiped my face and told myself I was lucky. Lucky to be the strong one. Lucky that I didn't need as much. But what if I did need it? What if I wanted someone to fight for me the way they fought for him? What if being good wasn't enough? College years blurred together in a haze of exhaustion and quiet determination. I dated a few boys who never lasted long because I was always too busy proving myself. One of them told me I had walls up. Another said I was too independent. I laughed it off, but deep down I wondered if they were right. How could I let anyone in when my own family had taught me that love was something you earned through silence and sacrifice? Marcus, meanwhile, lived like the world owed him something. New tattoos. Weekend trips. A brief stint trying to become an influencer, complete with a GoPro and sponsored energy drinks that went nowhere. Every failure was met with encouragement from our parents. Every small win was celebrated like he'd climbed Everest. And I kept giving. Not just money, time, energy, emotional labor. I proofread his terrible business plans. I helped him write apology emails to creditors. I listened to his late-night rants about how the world didn't understand his vision, because family comes first. Until the day I found out what he was really doing with all that seed money, present day. My voice lowers, the rain sound mixes with a subtle heartbeat pulse in the background music. It wasn't one big dramatic revelation. It was a series of small, ugly truths that piled up until I couldn't look away anymore. A strange text on his phone that I accidentally saw when he left it on the kitchen counter. A conversation I overheard between him and a friend about flipping something that didn't sound legal, bank statements that didn't add up. And finally, the night I decided to follow the trail instead of ignoring it. That night changed everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back properly. Let me show you how deep the roots of this story really go. Because to understand the betrayal, you first have to understand the love I gave so freely and how invisible it made me. Extended flashback sequence, more detailed, slower pace. Picture me at 16. It's a Friday night. Most girls my age are at football games or sleepovers giggling about boys. I'm at the dining table surrounded by textbooks, highlighter in hand, preparing for the SATs. Mom pokes her head in. "Elena, honey, Marcus needs a ride to his friend's party. Can you take him?" I'm exhausted from work. I look up. But I have to study. She gives me that look, the disappointed but understanding one. It's just one night, you're so smart, you'll be fine. Family helps family. So I drive him 40 minutes each way. He blasts his music, talks on the phone the whole time, barely thanks me when I drop him off. On the way home, I stop at a gas station and buy myself a cheap coffee to stay awake. When I get back, I study until 3 a.m. the next morning. Marcus sleeps till noon. Mom makes him pancakes. I get cereal, another memory, my high school prom. I had saved for months to buy a simple but pretty dress, deep blue, fitted at the waist. I did my own makeup because paying for a salon was out of the question. When I came downstairs, Dad barely looked up from the TV. Nice, he said. Have fun. Marcus, on the other hand, had gotten suspended again, something about a prank that went too far. Mom spent the entire evening comforting him, baking his favorite cookies, telling him high school is tough for everyone. No one took pictures of me in my dress. No one asked if I had a date. I didn't. I went with a group of friends who were also flying under the radar. We danced awkwardly, took silly selfies, and I told myself it was fine. But when I came home at midnight, the house was dark except for the kitchen light. Marcus was there, eating leftover cookies, laughing with Mom about some story from his night. They didn't even ask how my prom was. Back to present. My eyes meet the camera directly now, more intensity. I could fill hours with these stories. The Christmas where Marcus got the expensive gaming laptop, and I got practical socks and a gift card. The family vacation to the beach where all the photos featured Marcus building sandcastles or riding waves, while I'm the one applying sunscreen to everyone and packing the cooler. I became the family glue, the one who remembered birthdays, who mediated arguments, who showed up when no one else did. And in return, I received the quiet kind of love, the kind that says we know you'll be okay instead of we're so proud of who you are. I accepted it for years. I wore it like armor. Until the armor started to suffocate me. Music swells slightly, then drops back to soft piano. Then I met someone who made me feel seen for the first time in my life. His name was Alex. Kind eyes, steady hands, the type of person who listens when you speak instead of waiting for his turn to talk. We met at a marketing conference, both of us presenting on brand strategy. He told me my ideas were brilliant. He remembered the small details I shared about my childhood. For the first time, someone looked at me like I was the main character, not the supporting cast. Being with Alex felt like breathing fresh air after years underwater. He celebrated my promotions. He encouraged my dreams of starting my own consulting firm. He even helped me set boundaries with my family, gently at first. You don't have to say yes every time they ask for help, Elena. You're allowed to have your own life. I started to believe him. But the betrayal, the real one, started long before I met Alex. Long before I realized how much of myself I had given away. It started the day I handed Marcus my savings and watched my parents beam at him like he had just invented electricity. It started in all the small moments where I was asked to shrink so he could shine, and it was about to reach its breaking point in the most devastating way possible. Camera slowly pulls back. The rain continues. My voice grows quieter but resolute. This is the story of how I became invisible in my own family. This is the story of how love can be weaponized. This is the story of how one betrayal shattered everything I thought I knew about blood, loyalty, and who I was supposed to be. And how, in the end, I had to choose between keeping the family I was born into or finally choosing the woman I was meant to become. Screen fades to black slowly as piano notes linger. Rain sound continues for a few seconds. But before we get there, let me tell you everything that led up to that moment, every quiet sacrifice, every unspoken hurt. Every time I smiled when I wanted to scream, because the truth is never just one scene, it's the accumulation of thousands of tiny cuts, and I'm finally ready to show you all of them. For years, Marcus had perfected the art of illusion. Online, he was untouchable, the self-made entrepreneur, the visionary investor, the golden son who turned every risk into reward. His Instagram grid was a carefully curated temple of success. Luxury watches catching sunlight on his wrist, first-class airplane seats with champagne flutes. Motivational quotes overlaid on sunsets that screamed hustle harder. He posted stories from rooftop bars in Dubai, private yacht parties in Monaco, or so the captions claimed. And cryptic updates about seven-figure exits that made strangers comment heart-eye emojis and teach me your ways, king. My parents consumed every post like scripture. Look at your brother, Mom would say, holding her phone up while I sat beside her on the worn living room couch after my long corporate days. Her voice carried that particular mix of pride and relief, the kind reserved for the child who had made it. I'd force a smile. My shoulders aching from another 9 to 5 where I was actually climbing the ladder, one quiet promotion at a time. No flashy watches, no viral posts, just spreadsheets, strategy decks, and the slow, steady burn of real work. I told myself it didn't bother me, family was family. Marcus was my older brother, the one who used to sneak me extra cookies when Mom wasn't looking, the one who taught me how to ride a bike even though he laughed when I fell. Blood was thicker than envy, right? But the cracks started appearing anyway, small at first like hairline fractures in glass you pretend not to see. He'd forget to pay me back the $200 I lent him for emergency car repairs. He'd cancel family dinners at the last minute with vague excuses, big meeting, sis. You know how it is, only to have friends tag him in stories from loud parties across town. Once I saw him post a throwback photo of us as kids with the caption, "My ride or die since day one," while he still owed me money from 3 months earlier. I let it slide, again and again. Then came the night that changed everything. I had finally landed the promotion I'd been working toward for 18 months, marketing manager at Apex Dynamics, a growing tech firm that actually valued results over hype. My boss had greenlit my campaign idea for the biggest internal event of the year, a company-wide showcase where department heads presented new strategies to the entire leadership team and key investors. This was my moment. My chance to step out of the shadows and prove I belonged in the room where decisions were made. I was nervous, but the good kind, the kind that makes your blood feel electric. I'd spent weeks refining the deck, practicing in front of my mirror until the words felt natural. The night before the presentation, I planned to buy a sharp new suit, something that said confident professional instead of overworked employee. I had the money saved. Everything was aligned. My phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Marcus, his voice was thick with tears, the kind of broken sob that hits you straight in the chest. Elena, I'm so sorry to call this late. Everything's falling apart. This deal, it was supposed to be my biggest one yet, but the investor pulled out at the last second. If I don't come up with $10,000 by tomorrow morning, I lose everything. The contracts, the office space, my reputation, it's all gone. He sounded desperate, terrified. You're the only one I can trust, Elena. Mom and Dad can't know, they'd be devastated. They think I'm invincible. Please, I'll pay you back in 2 weeks tops. I swear on our childhood, on everything. My heart cracked open for him, again. The protective older sister instinct kicked in hard, the same one that had covered for him when we were kids, that had lied to our parents when he snuck out. That had always chosen loyalty over logic. I wired the $10,000 from my savings account that night, no hesitation. The next morning, I wore my old black suit, the one with the slightly frayed cuff and the faint coffee stain I could never fully remove. It felt cheap under the bright conference room lights. My presentation went okay, solid, competent, but not great. I saw the polite nods, the subtle disappointment in my boss's eyes when the Q&A ended without the spark I'd rehearsed. The investors smiled, but their questions were gentle, almost pitying. That night, while I sat on my couch replaying every missed beat of my talk, Marcus posted a new story. A photo from a rooftop bar downtown, city lights glittering behind him like diamonds. He was laughing, a fresh luxury watch gleaming on his wrist, the kind that cost more than my monthly rent. Caption in bold white text, closed the biggest deal of my life tonight. Hard work pays off. Never give up on your vision, fire, entrepreneur life grind. My stomach dropped. I called him immediately. He answered on the third ring, voice light and carefree, like the desperate man from the night before had never existed. Marcus, that money was supposed to be for my new suit. For the presentation I told you about, you said it was life or death. He laughed, actually laughed. Come on, sis, you're so dramatic. It was an emergency, but things turned around faster than I expected. I'll pay you back, okay? You know I'm good for it? Then, 2 days later at our parents' house for Sunday dinner, he pulled me into a big bear hug in front of everyone. Loud enough for Mom and Dad to hear, he announced, Elena is the best sister ever. Always has my back no matter what. I don't know what I'd do without her. Mom's eyes welled up with pride. Dad clapped him on the shoulder, beaming. That's my boy, and you, Elena, always looking out for family. We raised you right. I smiled because what else could I do? But inside, something cold and sharp lodged itself in my chest. That was the beginning of the end. Emotional close-up, my face in the car afterward, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turn white. Voiceover cracking, I started digging quietly. Not because I wanted to destroy him, I still loved the brother I thought I knew, but because the lies were starting to poison me. I needed truth, even if it hurt. What I uncovered over the next few weeks shattered every illusion I had left. Marcus wasn't an entrepreneur. He was a con artist wearing a tailored suit and a charming smile. He ran fake investment schemes, exclusive opportunities in tech startups, crypto funds, and real estate flips that never existed. At least 6 other people had given him money, friends of friends, a young couple saving for their first home. Even one of Dad's old colleagues from the factory who trusted him because he was family. He used my name in the paperwork to sound legitimate. My sister Elena is my business partner. She works in marketing at a solid company. She vetted everything. He had forged documents with my signature. He showed people screenshots of fake emails supposedly from me approving deals. Worse, so much worse, he had been siphoning money from our parents' retirement fund for over a year. Small amounts at first, then larger. He promised them guaranteed 30% returns with almost no risk. They never told me because, in Mom's words, you worry too much, honey, Marcus has it handled. He's the one with the vision. My hands shook as I sat in my apartment at 3 a.m., staring at bank statements, forged contracts. In chat logs I'd managed to access through a mutual contact who finally admitted the truth after I pushed hard enough. Nausea rolled through me in waves. The brother I had protected, the one I had sacrificed sleep, money, and peace of mind for, he had been using me as a human shield this entire time. When the schemes inevitably collapsed, I would be the one left holding the blame, my name on the documents, my approval on the deals. My reputation as the safe, boring sister who worked a corporate job would make me the perfect scapegoat. Music turns tense, low heartbeat sounds pulsing underneath. Quick cuts, old family photos where Marcus smiles brightest, contrasted with screenshots of angry messages from victims demanding their money. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mom and Dad's faces, their quiet pride in him, their gentle dismissal of my concerns. I saw the future where everything exploded and they looked at me with betrayal, not him. The confrontation happened at our childhood home on a rainy Tuesday evening. I waited until Mom was in the kitchen making tea and Dad was dozing in his recliner. Marcus was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone, probably curating his next post. My voice came out shaking but clear. How could you do this, after everything I've done for you? The money, the lies, using my name, siphoning from Mom and Dad's retirement. You forged my signature, Marcus. You made me part of your scams without me even knowing. He looked up slowly, no panic, no remorse. Just cold calculation in his eyes, the same eyes that used to light up when he told me stories as a kid. You've always been jealous, Elena, that's your problem? His tone was calm, almost pitying. Mom and Dad know I'm the one with vision. You're just safe, boring, reliable little Elena who plays by the rules and never takes risks. They chose to believe in me because I actually live. I dream big, you dream of promotions and sensible suits. He leaned forward, voice dropping. And let's be honest, if this all blows up, who are they going to blame? The golden son who gave them hope, or the daughter whose name is on the paperwork? Think about it. At that exact moment, Mom walked in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She must have heard the last part. Instead of turning on him, she looked at me with disappointment. Elena, please don't cause a scene. Your brother is going through a lot right now. Business is tough. He doesn't need you attacking him. The room spun. My mother, the woman who had bandaged my scraped knees and cheered at my school plays, chose his comfort over the truth. Over me, that was the moment something inside me finally died. The blind, unconditional love I had carried for my brother since childhood, the part of me that always forgave, always sacrificed, always protected, it cracked wide open and bled out. In its place, something colder and sharper was born: clarity, resolve, a quiet, burning rage that felt almost holy. Transition sting, sharp musical sting, screen fading to black for a beat before cutting to a close-up of my eyes, now harder. More determined. Until everything changed, I realized that the person I trusted most was the one who destroyed me. I didn't scream when I left that house for the last time. I didn't cry in front of Marcus or my parents or anyone who might use my tears as proof that I was too emotional or unstable. Instead, I walked out with my spine straight, my face calm, and a quiet fire burning behind my eyes that no one could see. That night, the apartment felt too empty and too full at the same time. Empty of the lies I had been carrying, full of the evidence I had been collecting in secret for the past 11 months. I sat at the small wooden desk under the single lamp, the one with the flickering bulb I kept meaning to replace. One by one, I laid everything out like a detective preparing for the final case. Bank statements showing transfers from elderly clients, accounts into shell companies Marcus controlled. Forged signatures on investment contracts, my name used without permission as a co-founder to give legitimacy to his scams. Screenshots of private messages where he bragged to his inner circle about milking the boomers and how gullible family can be. Audio recordings, hours of them, where he laughed about promising my parents' generational wealth while planning to disappear with the money. Emails admitting he never intended to pay back the loans he took from relatives. A particularly cruel video clip I had secretly recorded on my phone during a family dinner. Marcus mocking my father's limp behind his back. Calling my mother the perfect prop because she believed every word he said. Every piece hurt to look at again, but pain, I was learning, could be sharpened into a weapon if you refused to let it break you. I worked through the night, no sleep. Just black coffee and the cold glow of the laptop screen. By morning, I had organized everything into a master folder titled simply, Truth. Then I began building the presentation. It wasn't flashy like Marcus's slides with their golden eagles and luxury cars. Mine was clean, clinical, almost corporate, white background, black text. Red accents only where the evidence was most damning. Each slide told a story the audience could not ignore. Slide 1, who Marcus Reynolds really is. Slide 2, timeline of lies with dates and exact quotes. Slide 3, financial trail where the money went. Slide 4, victims, real stories, anonymized but detailed. Slide 5, my name, how he used me. Slide 6, family manipulation, the recordings. Slide 7, the final truth. I tested it on a spare monitor. The evidence was airtight, even a skeptic would have to pause. 2 weeks later, the day of Marcus's Success Summit arrived. He had rented the largest ballroom at the Grand Regency Hotel. 212 paid tickets at $497 each. VIP tables, live streaming. Local news invited because Marcus had promised life-changing revelations and a surprise guest speaker. My parents were seated in the front row, center, beaming with pride. Dad wore the new suit Marcus had gifted him. Mom had gotten her hair done specially. I bought a ticket under the fake name Sarah Klein, paid cash. Wore a plain black hoodie, jeans, and kept my head down. I sat in the very last row near the emergency exit, next to a sympathetic event technician named Jamal who owed me a favor from a past freelance job. He had access to the AV system. The lights dimmed. Marcus walked onto the stage like a king, tailored navy suit, perfect smile, wireless mic gleaming. "Good afternoon, empire builders," he boomed. The crowd cheered. "Today we're not just talking about success, we're building it together." He launched into his usual script, stories of overcoming haters, visuals of private jets and beach mansions, quotes from fake testimonials. The audience ate it up. My parents clapped the loudest. 23 minutes in, during his big mindset shift segment, I nodded once to Jamal. The projector flickered. Marcus's golden slide about legacy wealth vanished. In its place, my title slide appeared in stark black and white. "The real Marcus Reynolds story, no more lies." The room went still. Marcus laughed nervously. "Technical difficulty, folks, we'll fix that right." But the next slide loaded automatically. Lie 1, I built this from nothing. Reality, bank records showing $187,000 siphoned from his first mentorship group in 2022. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus's face twitched. "This is fake." Someone hacked the system? Slide after slide. Screenshots of him admitting in a group chat, "These people are so desperate for hope they'll believe anything." Easy money. A voice recording played through the ballroom speakers, clear as day. Marcus laughing. "Elena's parents, they're my golden ticket. Once I get them to invest big, we're gone." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face drained of color. People began shifting in their seats. A woman in the third row stood up. I recognized her from the victim list. Her elderly mother had lost $68,000. "You thief!" she shouted. "My mom trusted you." Chaos began to brew. Marcus tried to regain control. "This is sabotage. I have enemies. This is deepfake technology." But the evidence kept coming. Forged documents with my signature. Video of him mocking my parents at a family barbecue. Transfer records showing money moved to offshore accounts the day after he promised safe, ethical investments. I stood up slowly in the back row, removed my hoodie, let my hair fall loose. 200 heads turned as I began walking down the center aisle. The room fell into a stunned hush, broken only by the click of my shoes on the marble floor. Marcus saw me. His eyes widened in genuine shock. For the first time in years, the charming mask cracked completely. "Elena," he whispered into the mic, voice hoarse. I reached the front. Stopped 10 feet from the stage, looked him dead in the eyes. "You chose lies every single time, Marcus, about your past, about the money, about family, about me. Today, the truth chose me." The projector showed one final slide, a split screen, Marcus smiling on stage versus the real man in the recordings, cold and calculating. Security hesitated, unsure whose side to take. Attendees were already on their phones, live streaming, calling friends, demanding refunds at the registration desk outside. A man in a business suit stood up. "I want my money back, now." Another voice, "This is fraud." The local news crew, who had come for a puff piece, suddenly realized they had the story of the year. Cameras swung toward Marcus, then toward me. My parents sat frozen in the front row. Mom was crying silently. Dad looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Security finally moved, but not toward me. They escorted Marcus off the stage as he protested, "This is my event, you can't do this." But they could, and they did. As he was led out the side door, the crowd's murmurs turned into angry shouts. Someone started a chant, "Refund, refund." I didn't gloat, I didn't smile triumphantly. I simply turned to the audience and said quietly, "If any of you were hurt by him, the full evidence package is being sent to the authorities today. Protect yourselves. And protect each other." Then I walked out the same way I came in, tall, calm, unbroken. The aftermath unfolded like a slow avalanche. The local news ran the story that evening. Local motivational speaker exposed in public scam, evidence presented at own event. By morning, it was picked up by regional networks. Within 48 hours, national outlets were calling. Sponsors dropped him overnight. His website crashed from the traffic, mostly negative reviews and one-star ratings. The Success Summit, refunds drained what was left of his accounts. His inner circle scattered. Even the people who had defended him for years suddenly remembered red flags they had ignored. Marcus tried to post a video defending himself. It got ratioed into oblivion. Comments flooded with victim stories. One elderly woman shared how she had remortgaged her house on his advice. Another family posted medical bills they couldn't pay after losing their savings. My parents called me that same night. I let it ring, then again the next morning. I didn't answer for 3 days. On the 4th day, they showed up at my apartment unannounced. Mom's eyes were swollen. Dad looked smaller than I had ever seen him. Elena, Mom's voice broke the moment I opened the door. We didn't know, we were blind, he seemed so perfect. Dad stared at the floor. We chose him over and over, we made you feel like you were the problem. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I let them stand there for a long moment. The old Elena might have yelled, cried, or slammed the door. The new Elena had learned patience through pain. I stepped aside. Come in. We sat in the living room. No tea, no pleasantries, just raw honesty. They told me everything. How Marcus had slowly isolated them from my warnings. How he made them feel special, chosen. How he painted me as jealous, difficult, not a team player. How they had invested their retirement savings because he promised it would multiply. I listened without interrupting. When they finished, I spoke softly. I know you loved him, I know you thought you were protecting the family, but love without truth is just blindness. You hurt me deeply for years. Mom sobbed. Can you ever forgive us? I looked at them, really looked. The people who raised me, the people who failed me. I'm not there yet, I said honestly, but I'm willing to try. Not because you deserve it, but because I don't want to carry this anger forever. It's heavy. We talked for hours, not just about Marcus, about everything. The childhood favoritism I had always felt. The way they had dismissed my ambitions as too risky while praising his every idea. The quiet resentment that had built up like sediment in a river. By the end of the night, we weren't fixed. But we were starting. Music swells, hopeful but realistic, with undertones of resilience. In the months that followed, I used every hard lesson Marcus had unwillingly taught me. Attention to detail, quiet preparation, building systems instead of relying on charisma, protecting my energy like it was the most valuable asset I owned. I launched Elena Voss marketing consultancy from my living room. No hype, no fake testimonials, just honest work, transparent contracts, and results I could prove. The first client came from a victim support group, a small business owner who had lost money to Marcus and wanted to rebuild. Word spread. Within 6 months, I had a waiting list. Within a year, I moved into a small office downtown, hired my first assistant, and bought a modest but beautiful apartment with a balcony overlooking the river. I started therapy, real therapy. Not the motivational fluff Marcus peddled, the kind where you sit with the ugly parts and learn to love yourself anyway. I traveled first alone to the mountains, then with a new friend I made at a networking event. I learned to choose peace over people-pleasing, to say no without guilt, to celebrate small wins instead of waiting for perfection. Marcus reached out 8 months later. His message was short. Elena, I know I don't deserve to ask, but can we talk just once? I'm not the man I was. I thought about ignoring it, but something in me, the part that wanted closure more than revenge, agreed. We met at a quiet coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. He looked different, thinner, no designer suit, just a plain jacket and tired eyes, no entourage, no charm offensive. He didn't try to spin anything. He admitted the scams, admitted using my family. Admitted the mockery, admitted he had lost himself in the lie of his own persona. I thought if I kept performing, the emptiness would go away, he said, voice cracking. But it only got worse. I hurt everyone, especially you. Tears welled in his eyes. I couldn't tell if they were genuine or performative. After everything, maybe even he didn't know. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the silence stretch. I spent so long waiting for you to see me, I finally said, waiting for you to choose truth, but you never did. Not until the world forced your hand. He nodded, broken. I forgive you, Marcus, I said. The words surprised even me with how light they felt. Not because what you did was okay. Not because I want you back in my life. I forgive you for me, so I can sleep at night, so I can build something real without your shadow hanging over it. I set the cup down. But we're not family anymore, not the way you want, not the way my parents once forced. That chapter is closed. He cried then, real tears. I think I didn't comfort him. I simply stood up, paid for my own coffee, and walked out into the rain. It didn't feel like victory, it felt like freedom. 1 year and 3 months after the summit, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment at sunset. The wind played gently with my hair. Below, the river reflected the orange and pink sky. In my hand was a simple glass of wine, not to celebrate destruction but to toast survival. I thought about everything. The nights I cried alone, the evidence folders I built in secret. The moment I stood up in that ballroom, my parents' broken apologies and slow, careful rebuilding of trust. The business I grew from ashes, the version of myself I finally chose. I understood now, deeper than any motivational quote could reach. Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't loud destruction. It isn't public humiliation, though that had its place. It isn't even making someone lose everything. The strongest revenge is refusing to let their choices dim your light. It's building a life so full, so authentic, so quietly powerful that their absence becomes irrelevant. My parents had chosen Marcus every time until the truth became impossible to deny. They were learning, we were all learning, and I chose myself every single time, even when it hurt, even when it was lonely. Even when the easier path was forgiveness without boundaries or silence without truth. That choice, day after day, was my real empire. I raised my glass to the sunset. To the truth, I whispered. To resilience. And to never letting anyone steal my light again. The wind carried my words away, and for the first time in years, I smiled, not the polite smile I once wore for others, but the soft, genuine one that belonged only to me.